What's going on there, you guys? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Topics, guys. This one is going to be a dark one, guys. This is a menacing dark one right here, guys. This one is entitled Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. Now, guys, this movie is really fucking sinister right here. Really dark, really fucked up. The title says it all, really. Henry is the main title we get. I love how this movie is really documentary, kind of directed and stuff like that. It really doesn't feel film oriented, really feels documentary like and stuff like that. So this is really a documentary really of what it is like of a serial killer, things of that nature, guys. We get introduced to Henry. The movie just has a really dark serial killer, really just realistic atmosphere throughout the whole movie. We deal with a bunch of topics from abuse to killing to just all kinds of dark topics, guys, really. And to start off the movie, guys, we get the camera zooming out from a dead body and things like that. And what I also love about this movie, guys, is the sound effects. I mean, really, I'm not sure if that's Henry really doing some of the yelling and just sounds like there's arguing, like not necessarily arguing where you hear dialogue, but just sounds like just frustration and somebody just being killed or something like that, really. And you hear the grunts and things like that. And the grunts are really mean, And we get that really in the background of this movie, guys, really painting a dark atmosphere and things like that. Not sure if that's actually Henry, the actual actor playing Henry and things like that, but that was really good stuff. Love the sound effects going on there. And we eventually have Henry meet Becky, who is Henry eventually has come from prison and things like that, according to Otis. He lives with Otis, who is his roommate, things like that. They live in this kind of janky apartment, things like that, struggling for money, struggling for things like that. And eventually Otis tells him that he's going to be bringing Becky over. Now, these two dudes right here living together and things like that in that trashy apartment. We get Otis, who we see who is dealing drugs to some people and things like that. And, even the dude, even the drug user is tripping off on his drug dealer, because of the acts he makes, the dialogue he does. Otis really plays, trippy in this movie, even though the main focus is Henry, the serial killer. His friend, his roommate is Otis, who is tagged along with him along on these shenanigans and also portrayed as a main character in the film. Now, to be honest, we get that, Henry is a, trippy serial killer and things like that, really just over the top. But for the most part, guys, once we get introduced to Otis and knowing that, what his character is like and his background, again, these are both people who have had a past in prison. But future on in the movie, guys, to give some spoilers here, because again, this movie has been out for a while and nothing too crazy, but just going to give you guys, a little bit of scenery going on, what's going on. If you guys want to check out the movie, go ahead and check it out now. You guys can come back to this video after. I'll give you a couple seconds. All right, we good? Okay, you guys good? All right, ready? Time for some spoilers a little bit, guys. So, along with the film, guys, later on in the end of the movie, we find out that Otis is really a character that is, abusing his sister, things like that. And then Henry and Becky are really just, establishing this friendship and things like that. It seems that Becky really likes Henry and, wants to get to know him. And they learn about each other's backgrounds and things like that. Otis tells Becky, his sister, who is, she wants to know a little bit about Henry and things like that. So Otis tells her, like, he's a crazy dude, pretty much implying, like, hey, you should watch out for him, not me. He's the crazy one here and things like that. So even though Otis in reality plays a crazy character, crazier character, and Otis tells her, like, hey, what did he go to prison for? That he killed his own mom and things like that. And later on, Henry and Becky are talking along those lines and having a similar, similar past, coming from struggling, childhood, things like that, so stuff like that. So Henry and Becky established this friendship over that. And we later learn that Otis is really the major problem out of all these people, even though Henry is doing wrong. Becky is just somebody who is, needing a place to stay and things like that. Obviously, she comes from a crazy background. She talks about that with Henry and things like that. So later on in the film, guys, yeah, we see that her brother Otis is taking advantage of her, doing things, and then Henry steps in. And there's even remarks, previous to that, guys, in the beginning and middle throughout the film, where Otis is doing things where Henry is noticing, where Henry is, controlling him and having Becky's back, where he's like, hey, Otis, don't do that. That's your sister. And things like that. So he's getting on him and things like that. But eventually, guys, Otis has frustration where he eventually breaks his TV. And then Henry and him are like, okay, that means we got to go out and stuff like that. So, starting off the movie, guys, I mean, really, we get this introduction. That's how the characters are. And then them just going on killing sprees. I mean, really, guys, we get Otis stalking people later, in the beginning of the film, after like the zoom out camera from the dead body already in the first minute of the film. We get a killer soundtrack. Also, guys, the soundtrack to this movie, very intense. Even though, like I said, it doesn't feel film-oriented and film-directed, like professional and things like that. Really feels snuff-like. Really feels just documentary-like and things like that, guys. Similar to what David Fincher was going for on The Killer. Now, David Fincher is a director who is really professional with atmosphere and color and dialogue. So his was a lot more professional film-like on those lines. Oscar-winning, Grammy-winning, things like that. This film, guys, really just, like I said, snuff film. Really one for the horror lovers and things like that. So this one is dark, guys. So we get that killer soundtrack, no pun intended. And just later on, guys, Henry is following people, acting like a serial killer, which he is. And obviously has had a past with killing somebody already who has been to prison. And him and Otis living together in the apartment. And then, they're going on these prostitution things where they're picking up these prostitutes, killing them and things like that in the car, disposing of their bodies, and just things of that nature, guys. And that's what they're doing. And, Becky is just back at the house and things like that while all this is going on. And later on, guys, like I said, Otis gets out of frustration, destroys his TV. One of my favorite parts in the movie is where they go to the TV store to try and buy a TV from this gentleman. And that is by far the best dialogue of the film. Overall, guys, the film has really great dialogue. Them just getting to know each other. It paints a perfect picture of these characters and what their backgrounds are. So we know a lot about these characters. Not much in this movie, guys. The three main characters are really Henry, Otis, and Becky. So once we get to know them, guys, the focus is on them, and then them just doing their shenanigans from there on out. And like I said, my favorite part of the movie, guys, is when they go to the TV store, and that dude that works at that store, man, is really fucking with Henry and Otis, man. He's unaware that these guys are killers, and even though they give off that vibe that that they're intense and fucking mean business, and they're short with their sentences. They're just there to get a TV, and this guy's just fucking with them, man. Even though it's funny, but he's just fucking with them, doing his thing. Eventually, guys, Henry and Otis break, and funny enough, they break a TV from this dude's head. They grab his head, shove it through a TV, turn it on, electrocute him, and kill the dude, and stuff like that. So again, just going on these sprees left and right. Really, and what's different in this movie, guys, is, like it says, it's Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. They're doing this in a really serial killer fashion. It's not slasher like Jason or Michael Myers or, damn near obviously Freddy. But in this one, guys, it's really done in that realistic fashion where it just shows kind of like how it's a mixture of Falling Down and American Psycho. Really, it's a mixture of just people on the verge of breaking, dealing with things, always on the verge of snapping, and a mixture of American Psycho with obviously snapping, committing these things, and using, obviously their imagination and fascination to commit these crimes and please them at the end of the day. These are people that think this is okay, obviously haven't learned their lesson in prison, and these are the type of people they are. At the end of the day, these are serial killers, a mixture of Henry and Otis. But later on in the film, guys, Henry becomes a hero by saving Becky. His friend Becky is really innocent throughout this whole movie, guys. Like I said, she has that terrible background. So Henry and her clique establish this friendship, and seems that Otis is really noticing that and things like that. And then one night where Henry is doing his thing, singly, just individually out there hanging out, he goes for a walk, and stuff like that, comes back, and he sees Otis taking advantage of his sister, and Henry comes in, destroys this dude, and fucking just, has Becky's back, and things of that nature, guys. So, turns out that, this dude's over here really just, killing innocent people, doing wrong. But at the end of the day, guys, there are people doing wrong where there's no heroes really. At the end of the day, it sucks because there's a lot of people doing wrong that at the end of the day aren't doing anything heroic. So with that being said, guys, Henry actually turns out to have Becky's back, which is pretty cool because shit like that I am against, and that is wrong, and that fucker right there deserved what he got. So with Henry coming in, giving that dude what he deserved, was top notch. That's what we love about these slashers and horror movies, is that seeing people get what they deserve. I mean, obviously in these movies, guys, there's going to be innocent people getting slaughtered. There's things like that, but one, that happens in the real world. Two, there's shit like that all over TV anyways, on the news, all that stuff. That is what's broadcasted normally throughout the world. I mean, you have people that, even if you aren't into slashes and horror, you are left with no other choice to see the destruction and horrificness going on in the world regardless. So, I mean, whether you're into throwing on Hostel or Saw or, Terrifier, whatever it is, there is more shit terrifying going on in the real world than putting on makeup and prosthetics and effects onto screen and having fun and people getting praise and acknowledgement and establishing fans and money at the end of the day, and just showing creativity really through art. And unfortunately, what's going on out there, guys, isn't art. I just did a review on Natural Born Killers, where that is really expressed. Another film where serial killers are wanting that acknowledgement because they know that they'll get it from from just the people out there that praise this stuff. There are people that obviously are against this stuff. Obviously, when it comes to politicians and stuff like that, guys, there's never a right answer. I mean, there's always somebody saying something that's against something and things like that. But when it comes to Henry and things of that nature, guys, I mean, even though it's a portrait of a serial killer, ain't nothing darker than what's really going on in the real world, guys. I mean, I'm sure that we could all agree there. And if anybody counteracts that, you can go ahead and comment in the comment section, because I'm curious on what you guys think. You know what I mean? Because even though, guys, this is really just one to the people that are against horror. I hate people that are against horror that really just criticize it for being dark and just bashing the people that want to just watch, obviously, bloody nature going on. But you know what, guys? At the end of the day, it is art. People have their own opinions, to each its own. I mean, you wouldn't like people bashing your taste and what's going on and critiquing it for what you should be liking and should be doing. And obviously, what's your art, what you should be paying focus on and things like that, and what your taste should be, obviously. To each its own. Everybody is their own kind, and everyone has their own taste. And obviously, guys, when it comes to Henry, he did what he did. It's a portrait of a serial killer. I obviously don't condone this behavior, but when it comes to portraits and when it comes to art and expressing that, guys, it's better to watch it on a film than to do it. Guys. Learn that one from Maynard. Maynard said that one himself, where you accumulate all this frustration in the world, and by not having these outlets to express yourself and to let it out little by little, you're going to explode, and eventually it's going to accumulate, and it's not going to end well, and it's not going to be pretty. So with Henry, guys, Otis and them, with them combined, obviously I don't condone this behavior, but guys, it calls for a fucking good movie, calls for some good serial killer nature going on. It doesn't get any more realer than this, guys. This film right here is really underrated, I'd say, guys. It doesn't get really enough appreciation. I don't hear enough shout outs. It does have really good reviews on IMDb, so it seems that people who have watched it have dug it, understand it. So if you guys haven't, man, I'd really check out Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. There was a really popular show where it was for Jeffrey Dahmer and things like that. They've been doing a lot of serial killer movies, documentaries, things like that, guys. Like I said, David Fincher has his own film where I believe it was based off a comic book adaptation and things of that nature, where it was The Killer. That one is really good, guys. That film has to do with an assassin that is having a hard time just really counting off the body list and things like that. And even films that aren't based on this nature, that are really dark and grungy and in your face and really painting a picture of a serial killer, there are films done in a more sophisticated fashion that are doing the same thing. Take Hitman, take Collateral, take maybe even John Wick. Not John Wick, he's not an assassin, but things of that nature, guys. Assassin's Creed, things like that. You know what I mean? Where films are painted in this picture where somebody, is going out there just doing what they got to do, and even though it is not right, but They're doing it for money. They're doing it for the cause. And, sometimes it's like that, guys. And when it comes to art, there's no holding back. And that is the beauty about art, is that you can express yourself however much you want to, guys. So if you haven't already, guys, check out Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. Great film. Just a classic right here. Underrated stuff. And, like I said, there's also shows that, are on Netflix based on the Jeffrey Dahmer series and things like that, events that have went on with him, things of that nature. But this one, guys, is different. This one is Henry. So do yourselves a favor, guys. Check out some Henry, guys. Thanks for sticking with me on an episode of The Topics, guys. Let me know what else to talk about. Let's try to talk about some horror. Let's try to talk about some music. Anything of that nature, guys. This is where we talk about art. And over here, every day is Halloween, guys. Thanks for tuning in to an episode of The Topics, guys. Till next time, deuces.